All right, everybody, welcome back to another episode of the Radio FWD podcast. I'm super excited to bring on Brandon Lim onto the show. Welcome to the show, Brandon. Thanks so much for being here.
So stoked to be here, Sean. Thanks for inviting me to do this.
Brandon is a programmer at the Revue Cinema, some place that I frequent very often, and your program is pretty cool. It's black belt cinema featuring a lot of kung fu movies. You want to talk a little bit about the specifics of
for sure.
black belt cinema?
Yeah, black belt cinema started as kind of like a series of like DIY outdoor screenings during the pandemic, actually. And I had just kind of like organized a bunch of these outdoor events kind of accidentally. Like I'll get back to the origins of it maybe later on, but currently it's a monthly screening series at the historic Revue Cinema in downtown Toronto. We've been at the Revue for, I think we're going to be entering our 5th year pretty soon. So we focus on, a lot of martial arts classics, kung fu stuff, Hong Kong action, samurai films, you name it, and I do love to show stuff from like, that really amazing era of like 1980s to early 90s kind of Hong Kong action stuff. I also like, even like the Kurosawa kind of like Jide Geki period drama stuff. So I really just try to program stuff that I think people are going to really enjoy. Maybe they haven't seen it before or haven't at least seen it on the big screen, which is, why we're doing it. So that's kind of what black belt cinema is in a nutshell.
Oh yeah, that's awesome. And keeping with the spirit of the DIY nature, how black belt cinema started, you're also the editor of a zine called Film Fuckers, which is awesome. Yeah. I read one of the editions which you kindly gave me, which was on the art of collecting physical media. And the keeping that spirit alive in a world of streaming and digital content and torrenting and digital services. You have a community of writers interested in, what was that? The laser disc, laser discs and special edition VHS tapes.
For sure, yeah. The whole theme of that second issue was hard media, otherwise known as physical media.
Right.
And it was really interesting to see some of the submissions we got for it. One of my favorite pieces was by Christine Lucy Latimer, who's like she's essentially like a filmmaker, but she works specifically with a lot of like dead formats and different medias and stuff like that. So she'll make a lot of like short experimental films using, like 16 millimeter with like other analog technologies kind of layered over it. She wrote this amazing piece on the RCA video disc player, which was a very like short-lived format, which used these insanely large, I guess they call them video discs. And they were basically like the size of a vinyl record, but inside this like huge like flat cartridge, almost like a kind of like a giant floppy disk. I don't know if you were young enough to have experienced
just
floppy
on
disks.
the edge outside of floppy disks.
So this was like a gigantic, CD-ROMs. Yeah, this was like a gigantic floppy disk, and the video discs themselves were massive. But by the time this format hit the market, it was already becoming obsolete, I think, due to Betamax and VHS. But that's just one awesome article we had, and I think we had maybe like 18 submissions for that one.
Yeah, that tech is in a really awkward moment in history, right, where they had just moved away from...
Exactly, yeah, they kind of screwed themselves over, I think. But you still see a lot of these discs at a lot of antique vintage markets, and they're kind of cool collectibles because they're massive, so they... have this great like poster art on them, so you can kind of like hang them on your wall or put them on a shelf. But the actual look of them is like it's pretty grainy, kind of a little bit staticky. Maybe not as high quality as VHS, but there is a certain charm and interesting aesthetic to them for sure.
Yeah, awesome. And then of course you're also a great graphic designer. I just wanted to highlight this. Share where we met at the Sleazoids showing of Twisted Issues, which is a shot on video, like crazy punk rock horror slasher movie that the Sleazoids boys, which are a big inspiration of mine for starting this show, but those guys put on a movie at the Revue. And I think you overheard me inviting them onto the show, and you overheard, I think it was like a sleeper cell moment where you heard the word UTSC
Yep.
You clocked into it.
I
You're
just
like,
activated
yes,
like a Manchurian candidate. And,
exactly.
I think I basically invited myself here to a degree. But,
no, I definitely begged you to come on.
Yeah,
so
I appreciate that.
Tell me a little bit about your history with UTSC, or even if it's not a deep history, just maybe U of T in general and your
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I would say I have a somewhat of a deep history here. I mean, I studied here for 4 years or 5 years? I don't know. It took me a little while to finish that degree, as it does for some people. But yeah, so I not only studied at U of T Scarborough, but I also grew up in Scarborough. Really not far from here at all, actually. I lived very close to like the regional GO station.
Yeah,
so U of T was just literally like a 10-15 minute bus ride away. So it seemed like a convenient, logical place for me to
Inevitable,
study.
sort of.
Yeah, I couldn't really afford to like live in a residence or like on campus or something like that. So, and a lot of the courses that I wanted to study, I majored. Well, I actually did more than a major. I did English specialist, I guess, which is like a degree up from major, I suppose.
Something like that. Yeah.
Something like that. Yeah. So, I majored in English and did a minor in philosophy, and I took a handful of cinema studies courses as well, just kind of as electives, and because I was like passionate about film, and so I graduated I think in 2008 or so.
So you weren't necessarily in a film program, so like all of your film passion, film knowledge, kind of came self-studied.
So
you would say?
To a degree, because actually, like a lot of the introductory English courses here, there was the famous, I think the course code was ENG A10, which was taught by Gary Leonard. He was a really amazing professor who, honestly, the funny thing is, like, I graduated so long ago, and there's this feeling of like, God, what did I even learn?
Yeah, I feel
here,
you.
it's hard to, just look back at all this, knowledge you're just rapidly absorbing every week. But I often do think back to a lot of these amazing lectures that Gary Leonard gave. I think there's probably like a TED Talk or two you can probably look up on YouTube. But he really taught me how to look at film and literature and maybe even the world to a degree in a very like critical lens. So he really gave me the tools to look at things from different contexts. He would always go on about concepts like mythology of origin, ideology, and all these kinds of amazing things. So it really helped me with basically my practice now today as like a film programmer, as an editor, and it just really provided me with a lot of crucial, critical thinking skills.
It's more like scaffolding.
Yeah, it's kind of like scaffolding, I would say. Yeah, because you're building up different things and unearthing different contexts and stuff like that. So, but the interesting thing about his courses is that while it focused on mostly literature, he would always connect it to a lot of current social political issues. He would always connect it to a lot of like pop cultural things that I think really helped people understand a lot of these old narrative techniques and things like that in a modern context. So he really did have his finger on the pulse of, I think, like popular culture, film, television. So his lectures were just always really captivating and always felt kind of timely and relevant, and he was very engaging. So he would often reference films in a lot of his lectures, which I really, really enjoyed. And he also started, I believe, the first cinema studies courses that were available at UTSC. While I took a lot of his intro to literature classes, he I think during like my second or third year here, he launched these really interesting courses on. I think the first one I took was it was he would teach like 3 genres per course. So he did one that was on Hollywood romances, film noir, and westerns. So that one was like really, really amazing. And he even had this really cool course called the Vietnam War on film. So we would watch everything from like Rambo to like the Deer Hunter. But then he would throw in these curveballs. Like, okay, we're gonna watch Predator, and we're gonna analyze the Predator as a metaphor for the Viet Cong and America's imperialistic implosion and stuff like that. So, and then we would also watch like Taxi Driver, and he would get us to sort of analyze it as kind of like a post-Vietnam War Western set in 1970s New York. So he just always had these amazing takes on a lot of like iconic films that I had not really seen readings of. So yeah, I just found his lectures like endlessly fascinating, and I think they've really shaped a lot of my programming today and how I view film. So I don't think Professor Leonard's still at this campus. I think he's at the downtown one now.
Gotcha.
But yeah, just really huge influence on my formal education here.
Yeah. As it relates to UTSC, of course.
Yeah,
and then,
sure.
I find it interesting because I think the world of, or maybe the approach for someone who's into film.
Yeah.
And like maybe looking to make a career out of, not necessarily even filmmaking, right?
Yeah.
Because, you know, you've carved yourself a very nice niche of, you know, not only programming, but writing and editing.
Yeah.
But also a niche genre that you get to focus on. So I think there's a nice thing about not being in the, like I mentioned to you before, the U of T Cinema Studies industrial complex.
Right.
And, but rather having some level of like curiosity and watching anything and everything.
Yeah.
The B-est of B movies to like the film school starter pack films, right?
Absolutely.
So what was the origin of your fascination with all of these? I don't know if it's fair to say B movies, but low budget, direct to video, those sort of things. Yeah. I'll introduce. Sorry to interrupt. I'll introduce the movie we're chatting about today.
Absolutely. Yeah. I could trace back my interest in B movies, trashy cult cinema. Because don't get me wrong, I love art house cinema.
Yeah.
I love the classics. I love elevated cinema, but I also love the trash. I love the low budget stuff, the no budget stuff, the shot on video horrors, the really obscure oddities.
Yeah.
And I think that maybe connects back to I could go back as far as the first time my Uncle Wally showed me Evil Dead 2 when I was like 8 or 9 years old, and I wouldn't call that a B movie necessarily, but it does have that, really campy, kind of like gory, fun aesthetic. And I think that really shaped my taste for cinema to a lot of degree, because I grew up loving horror. Like I'm known as the kind of martial arts cinema guy, but to be honest, like my desert island genre would be horror. Like it's such a fascinating genre.
Yeah.
And it always remains relevant and timely because it just has this way of just perfectly reflecting the social anxieties of our times.
Yeah, it exists on the edge too.
Exactly.
It's always some
yeah.
level of...
Gary Leonard used to always bring up Julia Kristova's concept of abjection. And abjection, or anything that's abject, is it's something that challenges our boundaries, our boundaries of self, our physical boundaries of our bodies. So when we see something like violence or gore, we experience this kind of abject terror because we're like, oh my God, we're just these walking bags of flesh, and there's all this blood and guts underneath us, and so it disrupts our sense of identity and wholeness. And that concept has always been sort of endlessly fascinating to me. So anyways, yeah, horror is kind of where I got my start into loving a lot of this low budget stuff. But then also just being a child of the 80s, going to video stores every day after school. Like I was the type that would just come home right from school and I'd go to my local video store. Like I'd usually go to Video 99. Sometimes my parents would take me to Jumbo Video in Pickering. If there was something I couldn't find, they had a little bit more of a better selection. So there was this time, obviously, this is before streaming, right? So the video store is something that's really, I think, mythologized a lot still to this day.
Of course, yeah.
So just that experience of just going to the video store, and also for filmmakers at this time, they just had access to these home video markets, right? So you've got a lot of people making these really like low budget productions, but the video stores were like hungry for anything genre wise, action, horror, you name it. And so you would often just rent a lot of these like random oddities because you would run out of things to watch. There's only so many blockbusters,
mainstream
you can
films,
rent. So you're just constantly as a cinephile, you're always searching for more. And you would just end up watching like a lot of random stuff. Like I used to watch a lot of the old PM Entertainment films, which was like the studio that was just pumping out these amazing like low budget action films. Like they made this movie with Gary Daniels called Rage, where he plays like this mild-mannered high school teacher, and then he gets subjected to this experimental procedure that basically infects him with rage. Maybe similar to 28 Days Later.
Yeah, we just talked about that too.
Yeah, he doesn't turn into a zombie, but he does turn into this just rage-fueled maniac.
Yeah.
And
zombie isn't really like referenced in that.
Yeah, you're right.
Series,
it's not really a zombie film, to be honest. It's like a rage virus film.
28 Days Later, I think comfortably sits in the zombie genre because like the apocalypse, whatever, these zombies last much longer than like a human body should, but it does sound similar to what you're describing.
Yeah, it's funny too because
cool.
I remember when 28 Days Later first came out, I was such a zombie genre purist that I was just like, what's up with these running zombies and they're all infected?
Zombies,
like I do like horror is constantly reinventing itself, and filmmakers are constantly playing with genre tropes and breaking them. So there's always people that are gonna like appreciate that innovation, but then there's the old school people that are like zombies can't run and stuff like that. So I didn't really enjoy that film when it first came out, but the way it's aged and looking back on it, like I rewatched it recently before seeing 28 Years Later, and I'm just it was pretty groundbreaking. I really did enjoy it.
Yeah.
So yeah, one of the things that really further solidified my interest in kind of low budget schlocky kind of stuff was a really amazing series called the Laser Blast Film Society, which was curated by Justin Decloux, who a lot of people know as the host of the Important Cinema Club, and Peter Kaplowski, who's done a lot of amazing things in film programming, but is probably most known for being the curator of Midnight Madness at TIFF, and former guest of this podcast. So this series that they programmed at the Royal Cinema in Toronto's Little Italy area, I can't remember exactly when it ran from, but it was mainly like I think in the 2010s to maybe shortly before the pandemic, or at least up until Peter probably got a lot busier working at TIFF when he took over from Colin Geddes. So this series was amazing because they would show everything from schlocky, obscure martial arts stuff. Like they showed this one film, I remember, Future Cops, directed by Wong Jing, which was sort of a notorious unlicensed adaptation of the Street Fighter 2 video game franchise.
Wow.
So he was trying to make a Street Fighter 2 film, but then for whatever reason, Capcom wouldn't sign off on the rights, but he still made it anyways. Because it was, I don't know, it was kind of like the Wild West back then in Hong Kong. They were not only using a lot of unlicensed material, but they're also using like, music from other scores. Like you'll often hear like Bill Conti tracks from like the Rocky soundtrack just pop up. And I guess maybe they just maybe the studio didn't know or didn't send them cease and desist, but it was pretty incredible to see. So they would show stuff like that, all kinds of random stuff like Nemesis, which was this amazing cyberpunk action film directed by Albert Pune. I think they still have like a Tumblr or a blog spot. You should just Google Laser Blast Film Society just to look at the awesome lineup. And if you want a list of just certified bangers that are also just like real like head scratchers though too, like the kind of films that you wouldn't necessarily want to watch alone at home. Like you would want to see this with a theater of like, to be honest, like I think if they were screening this series now, they would be selling out hundreds of seats. But back then, you'd be sitting in the Royal with like maybe 30 to 60 people, like 80 to 90 would be like a really good turnout. But it just added to the allure of the series, and it just kind of almost had this like underground kind of like, you had to be there, kind of in the know type series. And really that introduced me to so many films I'd never seen before that were just absolutely like mind-blowing. And it kind of sets you on this path where you're like, I need to see more of this stuff. You want to wade through more of the oddities and the trash to just discover these hidden gems. So I think that series was probably like, I would have been like in my 20s or 30s when I was going to this. So that was like highly influential on even the programming that I do today with Black Belt Cinema. So I always like to give that
kind of showed you that it's possible to make a series out of these low budget movies or something that's outside of the mainstream. Yeah,
it's funny too, because a lot of people like to comment that they're like, oh, it's amazing you get to do this really like niche like series. And to me, like these films are like, I guess they are niche to a degree. Like I show like mainstream stuff too. Like, I showed like Enter the Dragon before and some of the greats, but then, even stuff like Miami Connection, I guess is obscure to some people. But to me, it's like, it has such a massive cult following, I guess, in the cinephile kind of community that it doesn't seem so niche to me. But I guess for the average,
when you're surrounded by enthusiasts, something might not seem niche, right?
It's hard to gauge, like, okay, how many people actually know this versus the average moviegoer that has never heard of like any of these things. So for me, it seems less niche, I guess.
Well, I also think, sorry to interrupt, but I also think that these movies, okay, maybe the specific films average person doesn't know, but they know the films that they've influenced.
Yeah, that's true. Like oftentimes, like you were mentioning Kill Bill and Lady Snowblood earlier.
Yeah,
I think you were at Lady Snowblood, I think, when we
Yes, that's right. I didn't even realize, but ages ago, that was the
It's always
first
fun when I
Black
meet
Belt
someone
cinema.
that's just like, oh, yeah, you did program that movie. I was there. So, yeah, that was me. I think that was like in January of 2022 or 2023 or something like that. So, yeah, you might not have seen Lady Snowblood, but, if I bring that movie up to someone, I'm like, oh, you've seen Kill Bill, right? And they're like, yeah, I've seen that. Well, yeah, like Lucy Liu's character, when Ishii is, sort of modeled after Michael Kaji's character in the film, and so is the narrative structure. So, yeah, you do get to see these interesting through lines to more, popular cinema, like, everyone's seen like Tarantino's films and stuff like that. So, but that's what's really fun about these, mainstream hits like Kill Bill, for example, is you trace them back to these, older predecessors. Like I remember the first time I became aware of, John Woo, the filmmaker, was watching True Romance and seeing like clips from A Better Tomorrow 2 that they're just randomly watching scenes of. And I'm like, what movie is that? I gotta find that movie, And this is before, I think this is before like, IMDb and like Wikipedia and even like Google search engines, so you just have to like seek these things out, you know? You'd have to like maybe look up if it was referenced in the credits, or you'd have to go talk to like a pretentious video store clerk at like somewhere like Suspect Video.
The video store guy.
Yeah, and those guys were, so vital though too, we often look at these like, the stereotypical comic book store clerk or video store clerk or record store clerk as this sort of, snooty kind of persona, but at the same time, it's just like, it's kind of a lost art. I don't want to say a lost art, but like,
I know what you're saying. There are still curators.
Yeah.
But I think the big difference, and I've talked about this on the pod before, I forget the origin of this, but there's like a lack of surprise now with curation, because before you took a risk going to the video store, before IMDb, before relentless reviews, before everyone had a comment about even like the most B of B movies, right? There was a huge surprise element where the most you could rely on was like, okay, either the video store guy telling you like, hey, this movie's fun or good or some way or another important that you should check it out, or it was referenced in another movie that you saw. Or, I mean, there were still ways of discovering film, but for me, like, I mean, again, I've talked about this on the pod before, but my form of discovery is film forums, Letterboxd, torrenting sites, and all sorts of forms of curation, content curation, reading articles, because there's just a massive community of cinephiles now. But I do feel in my heart of hearts that the element of surprise is missing, because if something ends up on my watch list, it almost always feels like it's important because someone else told me it was important.
Yeah.
Luckily, I still have that with Russian films because my dad will tell me about Russian movies from his childhood, and it still hasn't broken through. Like, obviously Tarkovsky is a big name here, but sure. I'm not talking about art house. I'm talking about like
even just
crappy comedies and movies about like Russian punk stars like Viktor Tsoi or whatever. Like that hasn't really broken through the mainstream here, or in the cinephile circles, not necessarily the mainstream. So I feel grateful that I still have some element of that, but that's maybe 1 out of 20 movies that I watch.
Right.
You know what I mean?
And that it's so vital to seek that kind of advice and recommendations from like your elders, your father, your grandfather, your uncle, aunt. Like those are the real deep cuts when you're looking for like movie suggestions.
But it's not necessarily even family. It's just like talking to someone, having a community of people to talk about, and not just relying on pure curation as a means of discovery. I think that's a big difference with the cinephile today versus like going to a video store and having a real risk involved, because you're also paying for it.
Yeah, you are paying for it, and even if you're not paying for it, you're still investing precious time. And resources, because we don't always. There's only so many freaking hours in a day, and I don't know. Just trying to decide on a movie to watch to me is very. Especially, this comes up a lot, but in the age of streaming, in the age of just like everything is so, there's this hyper availability to things.
Yeah, right.
I mean, there are a lot of hurdles to, you've got to subscribe to all these different streaming platforms, or, obviously there's, BitTorrent and these like movie sites and stuff like that. But we do have an unprecedented access to these films.
For sure.
In some ways, that's amazing. I love that I can just go on a website and just look up some obscure film from the 70s or 80s that I've been trying to find for years. And, back in the day, you'd have to get, there was a lot of like mail order bootlegs and like tape trading that was going on,
That's so cool.
which is pretty wild.
Yeah, that is.
Yeah, and
That's
then,
cool.
you'd have these like really like specialty video stores like the legendary, Suspect Video. So I, as a teenager, like just to talk about the, the hunt for these, you're taking these risks. I'd spend, money on transit going to downtown from the suburbs of Scarborough. I'd go to Suspect Video or some of these stores and rent something, and then I'd have to like do the same thing 2 days later.
Lug it all the way
back, and I'm renting this and like, trying to convince a few of my friends to come over and watch it, so I'm not just like doing this by myself and stuff like that. Or you'd be going to, people love to romanticize about all the Chinatown bootleg DVD and VCD stores like that, because we live in an age where all these amazing, boutique Blu-ray labels and partner labels from like, companies like Vinegar Syndrome, they're releasing these insane like 4K, 2K, UHD restorations of all these like films that like were so hard to find in the 80s and 90s. You'd have to go to Chinatown and buy like this weird VCD and like a sleeve of plastic with like a home printed art label. You'd have to hope that this has English subtitles on it so you can watch it, So it's just amazing like how the experience of accessing film has changed. And like, while I do like being able to just snap my fingertips and just find something,
watch anything,
it also creates this overwhelming amount of just limitless options that
choice paralysis.
Paralysis is so real. I swear I spend like
more time on Letterboxd adding stuff to your watch list than
horrible.
watching it.
Like,
I didn't
love
mean
it,
to
but
finish
it's also
your
horrible.
thought.
Like Letterboxd watch list is just like there's like 15,000 movies on it.
Yeah,
now,
mine's completely useless now. It's like okay, maybe that's
it's
a lot
so hard.
movies.
Like I spend like hours trying to decide on something to watch. I'll start watching it because I can just pause it, or like I'll just I'm not in the mood, so I'll start watching else, and then it's like 1 or 2 in the morning, I'm ready for bed.
Yeah.
Whereas you're going to a video store, that ritual of like spending time picking the film is kind of the funnest part.
Yes, sure.
And then, okay, what other one am I going to rent? And then you go home and you have this limited window of time to watch it. So you're you're kind of forced to just mindfully engage with the material versus like, oh, this is on my Plex server now, or this is on Netflix or whatever, and I can watch this whenever I want. And maybe I never will watch it because there's no set deadline of having to do it. So it's, in a way, yeah, streaming and just content paralysis, it's kind of ruined the way I watch and engage films. I wouldn't say ruined, but like I just place so much more value now on, like curation or just going to the cinema. Because it forces me to sit still for 2 hours. I know someone's taken the time to choose to play this film, whether it's a programmer or a theater. And so it's easier for me to watch film when I'm in a theater.
Agreed.
As opposed to just sitting on my couch where I can just pause it or get distracted on Instagram and things like that. So yeah, it's a lost form, and it's hard to navigate sometimes.
I totally have the same experience in the theater, like being completely locked in and with the crowd, especially with something
especially
like
with the crowd.
Revue. But your description of going from Scarborough downtown is like exactly how I feel going.
I feel like you're living that experience now to a degree.
When I go to the theater, absolutely, because I'm not renting anymore, or I'm not renting films. But yes, because I'm passionate about these sort of things. I'm going to the Revue and Fox and Paradise and all these places all the time.
Yeah.
So it's
it's like a cinematic odyssey you're on. You're on a pilgrimage for film. It's like I feel like that sometimes when I go to the Fox because it's really not that far, but it takes me like an hour to get there on public transit. And it's way out there.
Hey,
but
Revue is an hour 20 for me.
Exactly,
and I do it all the
right?
time.
Like I try not to complain about it too much because I know people come from pretty far to get to the Revue, which I think is just amazing. But that's just part of the process. I would even like go to Montreal occasionally just to check out like Fantasia Film Festival and I don't know, man. There's just something so fun and exciting about.
Still haven't been. I should definitely go.
You should go. It's kind of, I sort of describe it kind of like almost like Midnight Madness, but like almost for an entire month.
My cousin just premiered a short film at Fantasia.
What's it called?
It's called The Writer, and it's about it's a black and white short film about this graffiti artist that gets chased by the police.
Oh, okay. Yeah, they like to do that, I guess.
Something like that. Yeah. And he was very much embedded in this world as a teenager. And so he is intimately familiar with that world, especially when it comes to Montreal. And then now he's a videographer and has an eye for cinematography and that sort of thing. And I haven't seen it yet, but I'm planning to have him on the show and talk about that.
Yeah,
talk about Fantasia, talk about what it was like premiering, and then talk about his film a little bit. But
awesome.
Yeah. So shout out Josh.
Shout out Josh.
Okay. I guess we can get to the meat of why we're here. I asked you, like I do with most of my guests, if we're talking about a specific film rather than someone's. Well, we talked a bit about your career and everything, but if the thing I really love to do here is to talk about a specific film. And I asked you to bring something on, and I think everyone at this point is, especially those cinephiles at the University of Toronto Scarborough, know the lore about the sort of films that were shot here. Enemy is the go-to because there's a very clear shot of the university campus with Enemy.
There's so recognizable.
Yes. There's Guillermo del Toro's Shape of Water was partially filmed here.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Couple of shots, nothing as intense as what we're about to talk about, but also the new Christopher Borgley's film Dream Scenario.
Well, okay, yes. Yeah, that was the last time I remember being like, that's UFT Scarborough.
Yes, but that's like insanely obvious. The shots there are...
Because his character is a professor, I think,
that's right. Yeah, he's like a... Do you know the premise of that movie?
I did watch it.
Okay,
I liked it. Yeah.
So all of these films that have, or the Weeknd's music video Secrets is also filmed here.
Okay.
Yeah. So there's like a canon of films and music videos or shorts, TV shows. The Boys was also shot here.
That
some
makes
episodes
sense.
of The Boys.
Yeah.
That were shot at UTSC. But this movie is like totally under the radar. I'd never heard of it, but it's like a CanCon B-movie classic in this subgenre of exploitation films that is very humorously titled Canuxploitation.
I guess you could classify it under that. Yeah.
I don't know if it's really like an exploitation film, but it kind of teeters on kung fu. And
I think it has some of the hallmarks of that. It's a bit, it's a little, it did have a pretty decent budget, but it is, it does come off slightly low budget, a little goofy.
Yeah.
Really funny, awkward line deliveries.
Right.
Funny fight sequences.
But the film is called Expect No Mercy.
Expect No Mercy.
1995.
1995.
Directed by Zale Dalen.
Zale Dalen,
Dalen.
who also directed. You could definitely refer to this as a Canuxploitation flick, but he also directed Skip Tracer,
Okay.
which is I think it's about a repo man.
Okay, nice.
And I think it did get I don't know if Justin DeClue. I think he released it on his Gold Ninja Video.
Oh wow.
Series. I'll have to correct me if I'm wrong in that, but that you should definitely check out. It's pretty hilarious. it's kind of like a awkward kind of noir kind of. Just check it out. It's pretty awesome. Yeah.
But you brought along this film, Expect No Mercy, because it predominantly features the University of Toronto Scarborough campus throughout the entire film.
UFT Scarborough is basically a character in this film.
Yes, the brutalist architecture, the
God.
catacombs of the science wing.
I just walked through the, I don't know what you call the main lobby, that sort of square where there's the...
a meeting place.
Yeah, the meeting place. Oh my God, there are so many scenes that are shot in the meeting place in this.
That's right.
It's just like... And the amazing thing about when I first saw this film, again, was a Laser Blast Film Presents screening. I think they did it at the Royal maybe in 2016, 2015. And to be honest, I wasn't super familiar with Jalal Merhi. I think I'd seen Talons of the Eagle or something like that, but I'd not seen Expect No Mercy. And they screened this film, and they also got Jalal Merhi to introduce it and do a Q&A after, because he still lives in Toronto. He's just up in North York. And as soon as the film started, I was just like, oh my God, this was all...
who is that?
Yeah.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah.
No.
To provide some context, Jalal Merhi is a Brazilian-born Lebanese Canadian. He emigrated here from, I think, Brazil via Lebanon, and settled in Canada with his family. And he's got a really interesting career. I'd honestly love to make a documentary about him, but he started in the gemstone industry, and I think he did pretty well at that, and eventually used some of the money he made from that to basically self-finance a bunch of action films. And I should also mention that Jalal Merhi was a competitive martial artist. He really competed in the Canadian martial arts circuit. I'm sure he probably competed internationally too. And he was actually a very established martial arts guy in the local community, and so he knew all these awesome martial artists. And so he started not only directing and starring these films, but he was producing them and distributed them. He started this company called Film One Productions, which still exists to this day. And a lot of his films, I think, were also distributed through Alliance or Alliance Atlantis. He had a pretty good distribution deal with those guys. So his films were, they would get, pretty modest theatrical runs, but they also did really well on the home video market. So he had this whole empire, and it's just amazing to see, a person of color like him, starring in these roles. We're at a time where there was not a lot of roles available for, I'd say people of color to star in these sort of lead kind of action roles. So I just find it really fascinating that he was able to carve out a space for himself like that, and also bring in maybe arguably more well-known martial arts actors like Billy Blanks, who's very known for the Tae Bo
home workout videos.
Those were huge in the 90s. Every family had these box sets, and people were crazy about them. It was gigantic fad.
Because I know there's a number of these celebrity workout tapes that were
there's a lot.
big at the time.
Yeah.
But I guess this was one of the bigger ones.
This was huge, man.
Damn,
it was the
no
biggest
idea.
one since Jane Fonda's workout or something, or
the
what was Chuck Norris's the Bowflex or something like that.
Yeah.
This is if you were watching cable television, you would see ads for these nonstop on infomercial channels and stuff like that. So they were everywhere. It was a huge fitness fad.
My producer Dale overheard the film that we're talking about.
Yeah,
Didn't know about Expect No Mercy, but knew immediately Billy Blanks.
Blanks.
Tae Bo, the Tae Bo guy.
He's the Tae Bo guy. That's probably the thing he's most famous for. Sure. His first on-screen credit or role, I think, was in The Last Boy Scout, the Tony Scott film.
The Tony Scott movie.
A lot of people don't remember him being in that film because he's in the opening scene where this football player pulls out a gun and starts shooting people at this game because he's been like, I think he's been blackmailed to throw this game or something like that. And so he's that was one of his first big roles. But you've probably seen him in other stuff like TC 2000 maybe also shot here and. But Tybo is definitely the one that's more famous. But yeah, they shot this film, Expect No Mercy, at UTSC. You see a ton of H-Wing, the catacombs. Also, we'll probably get to this later on, but there's a gigantic explosion that apparently damaged a lot of windows here at UT Scarborough that they had to pay for a lot of the repairs and stuff like that. So they really made good use of this campus when they were shooting there. Yeah,
I actually, for its status as a B movie, I think it's hard not to make this campus look like alienating and oppressive, like we were saying earlier. I think. That's so cool.
I'm just. You probably can't see this right now. I've got the Vinegar Syndrome Blu-ray here, signed with a gold Sharpie by old Jalal Merhai here, just for a little visual reference. Yeah.
So like I was saying, it's hard not to make this campus look cool or in its shots, but the angles that they come up with especially HW outside is like very unique, blocky, kind of like looks like a trapezoidal Lego building that just like kind of expands and it's like a tiered shape. It's such a unique looking building. I'll have photos up as we're talking about it. But they really make good use of the campus, like you were saying. Yeah. Also, it's so like multi-textured, right? When you're in the office. I'll introduce. UTSC is in this film the Academy of Virtual Combat Arts.
Yeah, it's the Virtual Arts Academy or something like that.
Virtual Arts Academy, Virtual Combat Arts or something. Something along those lines. The film follows this kind of cult leader-esque
Warbeck,
who owns this Virtual Combat Arts Academy where people strap into VR goggles and find themselves locked in on a spiritual, physical, and mental level, unlike any other training you could possibly receive, where they turn themselves into lethal weapons, human lethal weapons of combat.
It's kind of under the guise of like this like sort of self-empowerment, become the best version of yourself.
Right.
Kind of academy, but in reality, they're training elite assassins for hire.
That's right. That's right. And then Billy Blanks comes in as this secret agent working for the FSB, which is hilarious.
The Federal Security Bureau?
Right, but not the Russian FSB.
What's the Russian FSB?
It's the KGB.
Oh, okay.
The Russian FSB, like in English FSB, but in Russian it's in English, it's not called FSB. It's called Federal Security something.
Oh, okay.
Right?
I didn't get that connection.
No, it's not like the FSB was established in the death knell of the KGB, but it's essentially the predecessor, rather successor to the KGB once the Soviet Union collapsed in 1995. Actually, the same year this came out, which makes it so funny.
Do you think they're referencing that specifically, or is it just a weird coincidence?
I think it's just a funny coincidence.
Okay.
I think if you can't call something the Federal Bureau of Investigation, you call it the Federal Security Bureau. But I thought it's so funny that it's the FSB because that's FSB. Like the Russian security agency. No connection at all. But I just found that pretty funny. Billy Blanks plays Justin Vanier.
It almost sounds like a French name or something like that.
Who works for this FSB and they
Vanier.
Vanier, I think.
Yeah.
Who's investigating this academy, right?
Yeah. It's funny when the agents go to find him because it almost seems like they're bringing him out of retirement for one last job or something like that.
He's like a gun instructor or something.
He's like training people at the FSB academy or something like that.
Right.
They're doing like target practice and martial arts training, and like they're like, Justin, we need you. One of our agents that was undercover, he's he's gone offline and
right. Well, he's found dead.
Or they find him dead
in the car underwater. They pull the car out like a nice Dodge a Charger, I think.
Right. Yeah. The opening scene is quite impressive. We also have to talk about the mid '90s computer graphics in this film that apparently took like days and days and days of a room full of computers to render, which is still the case for a lot of modern animation, actually, now that I think about it.
Yeah.
But yeah, Jalal was talking about how like just a simple scene would be rendering for like 3 to 4 days with these computers. And at the time, like some of these effects were like, pretty state of the art, I would say.
Yeah.
I would say like, growing up, not just in the 80s and 90s, but like in 1995 specifically, virtual reality, like the concept of virtual reality was so huge and like just in the lexicon of pop culture, famously we had the film, I'm sure, have you seen The Lawnmower Man?
No, I haven't.
From 1992. It stars...
it comes out after... Sorry, it comes out after Tron and Brainstorm and Total Recall.
Absolutely.
Which are kind of all adjacent, but I think the terminology around virtual reality probably came around that time. But this movie predates Existence and The Matrix, Dark City, isekai animes.
Absolutely. It also came out the same year as
Strange
Days, and I think Johnny Mnemonic.
Oh yeah,
which is not. I wouldn't say it's a virtual reality film, but there is a lot of. There is virtual reality. He puts on like the goggles, and then he's in the cyber web or whatever the term that William Gibson coined. So virtual reality and its like sort of potential and possibilities was just very much on the minds of people then. And while I don't think really virtual reality actually really properly existed at that time, it was more of just like a concept that would be like this new amazing innovative technology. But film definitely explored this subject to a huge degree. I was mentioning Lawnmower Man earlier, where essentially there was just so many ideas of what virtual reality could do. And The Lawnmower Man, essentially virtual reality is used as this software that can basically like cure autism, I guess, where there's this guy who's played by Jeff Fahey, who's an amazing character actor. He plays like a sort of someone that's he's kind of a mentally challenged lawnmower man. Like he's literally a lawnmower man. And his neighbor, or at least I think the person whose lawn he's mowing, is this sort of VR scientist played by Pierce Brosnan.
Oh, wow.
And so he starts putting this lawnmower man into these virtual reality simulations, and something happens. Like his mind just starts to evolve and grow, and he starts to become more intelligent. He starts to become more hyper confident, and he becomes kind of like a ladies' man, and he becomes a kind of stronger and smarter. But then, of course, this Faustian deal with the devil, turns him into a little bit of like an aggressive kind of maniac.
Yeah.
And he starts to use virtual reality in increasingly more powerful ways, and becomes like super unhinged. So this film was like really big when it came out, and I think it kind of continued this wave of virtual reality films.
What's funny here is that there's like literally no consequences to this training.
Yeah.
Besides the idea that Wolf Larsen's character Warbeck can like turn up the pain threshold and potentially even kill you in this simulation, but there's no like Faustian deal here. All of these guys actually do turn out to be like pretty badass lethal weapons and like killers. I don't know. I keep saying lethal weapons.
They're all lethal killers.
Yeah,
and they all have really cropped like chin strap beards. I don't know if they all have like the same stylist or hairdresser, but they all have like these like really thin like chin strap kind of beard goatees. I find. And they all wear like black like sleeveless tanks and really,
shoulder
pads, and I love how they all have like these like headsets with like these kind of fancy goggles that allows Wolf Larsen's character to kind of like watch their whole operations. Like the movie opens up with like an assassination.
Yes,
basically.
Of the Bertolucci assignment, a twice divorced real estate mogul.
Right. Yeah, they're going after all these like high profile clients. It's a lot of industrial
business assassination.
Yeah, exactly, right? So I think the guy they're going after in the first scene is called the Cat because he's survived 8 assassination attempts. And this is the 9th one, so it's like, they're going to get him because it's his last life.
Yes.
But they're also using these virtual reality simulations to like map out their target's property and stuff like that.
That's right.
So
they also record the assassinations for training purposes. So they like upload those.
That part I found interesting because essentially he wants to record everything so he can add them to these like training simulations to make everyone like a better assassin,
right.
Which is kind of interesting. It's almost like they're kind of like, it's like this like AI mining algorithm, I guess.
Yeah, like a machine learning sort of.
Yeah, it's a machine learning.
Machine learning.
There's a scene where Jalal Merhai kind of explains to some of the new cadets, because Billy Blanks goes undercover to this virtual reality academy after the other agent is killed.
But because it's not clear whether they're actually, they actually are being hired as assassins.
It kind of seems like you can sort of apply to study at this academy and better yourself. And like, the top students get, I presume they get kind of recruited into this like elite assassination squad that Wolf is using to earn millions or whatever.
It's not really clear what other motivations there are besides like.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe like you can come up with
he
any
goes
number
on this
of
kind of
reasons.
ideological rant towards the end about authority and power and why does the government have the right to decide who can kill?
Monopolizing violence.
Yeah, man should have that power and stuff. It's kind of a pretty funny monologue at the end. But like when you first see Billy Blanks, showing up at the academy, I love because he gets out of his pickup truck. And then for some reason he like unzips his windbreaker down and then like turns his hat backwards. So it's just like, I'm gonna see
now
more,
I'm
like,
undercover.
Now I'm undercover. I'm like this like cool like underground guy. And then he walks through the one of the courtyards at UTSC, and you just see all these different martial artists just kind of training in the courtyard. And these are all real. Like Jalal just like put a call out to his various martial arts instructor friends and like, bring as many students as you got. We got to fill up the square and just start training. So you see these people, they're all doing different styles. Some of them are doing like karate, others are doing like kung fu. There's some other people doing like weapons training. So it's interesting to see like this. I love just seeing all these extras in the background because these were all like, martial arts students that are like, okay, we get to be in like Jalal's film,
That's
so
awesome.
I always often wonder where some of those people are now. And well, some of them were actually at the screening we did of Tiger Claws, one of Jalal's other films with Cynthia Rothrock that we did. So I remember like, just as this is like a side tangent, like in Tiger Claws, there's this one like teenager in this one martial arts competition scene. And like, he was at the screening, like all grown up and like, he almost kind of looked like Gerald Okamura, who's like a famous henchman you see in like Big Trouble in Little China and stuff like that.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
I don't know. It's just mind blowing to see where these people are at now. And like, there's this guy's like now a martial arts instructor too, just like, some of these people's in the film. So yeah, he sort of infiltrates this academy, and Jalal Merhai's character Eric is already there undercover. I think he's kind of like in one of the instructors. Like he's pretty high up.
Yeah, he's super highly ranked.
Yeah, he's like a high rank.
The Connect inside.
Yeah, and there's this other woman. I think her character's name is Vicky, played by Laurie Holden.
Oh yeah.
You might recognize her from some of the earlier seasons of The Walking Dead. She's also in The Mist with like Thomas Jane.
Yeah.
And she's actually really great in this film. She's looking great. She's got this kind of fun. I don't know if you remember this fashion trend like health goth, which was kind of just like a really sporty gothy look. That was, I'm trying to think of when this was popular, maybe in the mid 2010s or something like that. But she's wearing a lot of like black Adidas and kind of black football jerseys, and it just had this really like proto health goth look. She's got a really cool look in this film, I think, and she's really great. She's kind of like, I guess, kind of one of the instructors. She's sort of helping some of the new
administrative work.
Yeah, she does a lot of administrative
like
work for this
when
company.
He goes for admissions, he needs to get his like. He needs to get his assignment or whatever.
Yeah, it's like his orientation.
Orientation, yeah,
that's right. It's so funny to see this like orientation process because it's not too dissimilar from like the student orientation
that we might have gone through
here.
At UTSC.
When you go before, I think what you've been accepted, you go for like an orientation where like a student leader or something like that gives you like a tour of the campus and You get to go check out a lecture as it's happening and stuff like that. So it was not dissimilar from my actual orientation here at UTSC before I started my first semester.
Which is like so surreal if you're watching this movie as somebody who graduated from this university. I mean, they can't get rid of me. I've never left. You know, it's like such a nostalgic feeling that I really can't describe. It would be like if I watched an entire movie that took place in my childhood hometown of Natick, Massachusetts, which appears in some movies for like half a second, but it would be like...
Sorry, where you grew up in Massachusetts?
I grew up in Natick, which is 45 minutes south of Boston.
Right, okay, interesting.
But it would be like... It would feel the same way. Or like, I don't know any other place well enough. Like, I was born in Montreal.
Right. Okay.
If there's I mean, there are a bunch of films shot in Montreal or that take place in Montreal.
Yeah.
I don't get that sense of like, I don't get that sense of nostalgia like I do with this. I've never had a feeling like this.
It's
watching
uncanny.
Expect No Mercy.
Like it's just so uncanny. What I love about the humanities wing is just how timeless it feels. Like I haven't been to this campus in years, but it looks exactly the same, especially from the outside. Just, it's amazing. I think that's why anything that's shot here has, I don't want to say like, it's not necessarily like otherworldly, but it almost has this kind of like minimal like retro futurism to it, obviously because of the brutalist architecture and everything, but it still looks exactly the same. Like I almost felt like a chill down my spine when I was like, before I actually got to the student center, I had to go for a stroll through H-Wing just to soak up the memories, you know? It's really remarkable.
At some point, they're also behind HW, like where the valley entrance is. Did you get a chance to see the new trail, the new renovations there?
I haven't. No, if I have time after, I'm going to try to check it out.
If you have time, I'll show you. But there, like each of these locations that shows up in the film, there's like above the, again, like mostly taking place in HW, but there's like a section now up above the food court that is in HW.
Yeah. I saw they have like a bow mama now. I'm like, oh man, I wish they had a bow place when I was studying here. Yeah.
So UTSC, like you said, it kind of like becomes its own character.
Yes.
I was mentioning earlier, but there's like actually a diversity of like textures that you get. Like when they're in the training facility, it's like there's the wood facade of of the lecture halls inside HW, and then when they're like running through the halls and you see the lockers, which works so well for the academy. In the SW catacombs, just works well for where you would keep secret file locations, because that is Billy Blanks' assignment, of course, is to hack into the academy and send back evidence of their criminal dealings back home. Just like I said earlier, right? Dream Scenario does take place largely on campus, but I think it was just like, I don't know. I think it was a little too close to feeling like it's taking place at a university. Like the fact that you kind of abstract the university element of it in this film, and they like really did a good job stripping signages, and it doesn't feel lived in. It feels completely blank. It feels like super techy and futuristic, like you were saying. In congruence with the tech and 3D animations that we see in the film, and like when they jump into these simulations, they're like being zapped by digital wire.
It's a whole nother world. Yeah, they get zapped into these VR worlds that are they're characters themselves in this world. They're kind of like lit up with all this like flashy, glittery lighting, and then the surroundings just look like almost like a weird level from like Mortal Kombat, but a little bit more brighter and colorful. A lot of geometric shapes, but also a lot of like, there's like a level where they're, I don't know, it's kind of almost like they're in feudal Japan.
Yeah, like a dojo or a temple
like a
or
dojo.
something.
There's like a samurai warrior with like armor and stuff like that. So, and then all of a sudden, you see the classic like Greek pillars. It almost has like kind of a vaporwave aesthetic to it.
Yes, that's true. Yeah,
it's really bright and colorful. The levels are kind of constantly changing. When the cadets first get there too, I love how like Jalal Merhai and Vicky, Laurie Holden's character are like just these two giant floating heads that are just kind of instructing them on the different levels, like, because apparently there's different levels where you feel the simulation of pain, but not the injury. But I think it kind of implies that as you get to higher levels, it becomes more dangerous. Like
Then
you could
reality,
get
there's like double
injured.
damage.
There's double damage, you know, and the people you're fighting get more challenging, and
right.
yeah, so it's got its own world and rules and stuff that are I do like how it is pretty expanded, but they also imply that like, oh, you can also do training here. You can expand your mind. You can expand your passion. I'm talking sex.
Yeah,
you know, and
you can have any number of simulations here.
Which I feel it was like a missed opportunity not to have had a VR sex scene.
Sex scene,
yeah, but, you know,
for
probably
real.
only so much in the budget. I'm sure. Yeah.
So we get to they get captured at some point.
Yeah, when they break in, I think they steal someone's passcode. And they hack into the mainframe.
Eric is like an elite hacker.
Apparently, he's just an elite hacker. You know, he's like, oh, I'm trying to get the password. I guess I'll just have to make a new password. And then, okay, sure, yeah, you did it, bud. And he's like, oh, it's here, all the evidence we need to convict him of these crimes. You know, and of course, Vicky, she just assumes these guys are like industrial
corporate espionage
dudes, right? So she hits the alarm, and then immediately after hitting the alarm, she's just like, oh, wait, this whole operation is this elite assassination ring? Oops. And then he was just like, I told you to trust me, Vicky. Jalal Mirhai is great because, I mean, he acknowledges he's not the greatest actor. Like, I feel like a lot of people like to talk about, vanity projects in film. You know, you get your, what's that guy, Neil Breen. You got your Neil Breens and your Tommy Wiseaus, and I wouldn't classify Jalal Mirhai as one of those. Like, I do think there is a certain element of vanity when you're, directing and starring in your own films, but I also feel like he was doing it out of necessity.
Yeah, I really wasn't like distracted by his performance at all. So
his performance is like he's got that thing where he's like, his acting is a little stiff. He's still a good physical performer. But it's like that thing where it's like, his deliveries, there's a little bit of a monotone tone to it. It's a little bit flat. But again, you're not watching a lot of these martial arts action films for the acting.
No,
right? Like, we want to see
cool fight scenes.
We want to see the roundhouse kicks and that kind of stuff and the explosions, right? So we give this kind of acting a pass. And watching it now, it obviously adds to the charm of, I don't want to say it's like so bad it's good, but it's fun. It adds to the camp, and I always get nervous whenever we have like a filmmaker or actor at one of these screenings. I'm like, how are they going to react to all the what I presume is like unintentional comedic moments
when the crowd reacts,
where people like laugh at a funny line delivery or something awkward. I always kind of worry how someone's going to react to that because you hear about, I don't know, like the first thing that popped in my mind is like the Birdemic movies are sort of have you heard of the Bird?
I think
Birdemic?
So. Yeah, but
just
you can.
Just a super so bad it's good kind of film that was getting one of those kind of cult followings like The Room. But the problem is like the filmmaker doesn't see it as like a so bad it's good kind of film, and so he's like, why is everyone laughing? And like I would hate to have a filmmaker or actor have that experience at one of my screenings. Jalal Mirhai was very like. I wouldn't say that some of this comedy is self-aware, but I think he appreciated the reaction to some of the stuff because he's also in the audience with like his kids, which is mind-blowing to me because some of his kids had never seen a single one of his films.
Oh wow!
And I'm like, oh my god, you just kind of grew up with this like, oh yeah, Dad used to be a action star in the '90s, and like, how do you not? I just don't know how the curiosity would not get the better of you to like watch one of these films. So being at the Revue Cinema when like his daughter Hannah was like seeing one of these films for the first time was just it was just so awesome to just be able to see their reaction in real time to all these things and like have a crowd full of people cheering your dad and like clapping and like it just must have been so fun for them
and
bet, to be able to have played a small hand in
so
providing
touching.
that experience was really it was just like a milestone. It's like it's not necessarily the best movie that we've screened at Black Belt but like I don't know. That to me, that's kind of like why theaters like Revue are so successful because we just have these like really occasionally like memorable screening experiences where you're like, the director's there, there's people that worked on the crew, and it's just like,
well, it's embedded in the city too, right?
Exactly.
I mean, it is on the west side, but the Revue is rather, but
Yeah.
Toronto's Toronto.
Toronto's Toronto. Whether you're in the East End as far as U of T Scarborough or in the West End in Roncesvalles Village, Hyde Park, there's just so much cinema history here.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
Even before we were known as like Hollywood North, you know, it's like if you think like even 5-10 years from now, the amount of films and television shows that have been shot in Toronto are going to be even more vast, right? And we're just looking at stuff from like, you know, 80s and 90s right now that we're talking about. So yeah.
Well, now it's become a mecca for filmmakers, sort of.
Oh, yeah.
To portray Toronto as New York or.
Oh, that's God.
Classic.
Yeah, it's often like you'll always have a moment where you're like walking downtown and you'll just see a New York cab just like parked somewhere because they're like, they're just
filming
so
something.
commonly using Toronto as New York. And Vancouver often is unsuccessfully portrayed as New York too. That's the one. Like I feel like Toronto gets a pass, but Vancouver is so obviously Vancouver. I haven't really been there that many times, but it's kind of just so easy to recognize in film at least. Well, I mean, and sometimes the mountainous forest in the background is obviously a dead giveaway. But yeah, another cool detail about them shooting at UTSC is there's so many scenes in the meeting place, but I love how there's like this huge black and white photograph of Wolf Larson's character as like, you know, just staring, you know, somberly into the distance, you know, very, very esteemed and stuff like that. Like, and he comes out in like these weird kind of sort of fascist looking like robes and stuff like that. You can tell that people really sort of idolize this guy for some reason. I don't know.
Yeah, it's giving fascist martial arts instructors like perfectly. It's unbelievable how they translated that. Yeah, that portrait is hilarious in Meeting Place. I can just picture it being there, and I thought like, well, we'll get to the ending. So you were saying the detail.
So I know. If back to the movie, I guess, you know, they capture them when they're getting all that information. I think. Yeah, at this point, Vicky
sounds the alarm.
Vicky kind of regrets doing that. She's just like, give me I don't know if it's like a floppy disk or something like. Back then, it was always like microfilm, or a flash disk, and now we watch like, you know, Mission Impossible, the most recent one. The main thing is that they got to get this. They got to plug They got to plug a USB.
Oh, sure.
Into a computer, basically, is what they have to do.
Yes, that's right.
It's like it's always going to be this trope of action cinema, you know, having something on a disc or USB. But yeah, I think she has it on a disc, and she's kind of realizing, oh, okay, yeah, this virtual arts academy is not what it seems to be. And then what do they I think like Jalal and Billy Blanks are trying to escape. They're trying to jump over this ledge, right? And just before they jump, they get like hit by like blow darts.
Yes, on the roof of BV.
On BV, okay. I was like, I don't know exactly where this is, but it looks so familiar. One of his henchmen, played by, I think his name is Anthony DeLongis. He pops up in a lot of films as like a, you know, like a henchman type bruiser kind of guy.
I see.
Yeah, he shoots him with like, I think it's like a crossbow.
Is it? Oh yes.
Yeah.
But it's the whip guy, right, Damien?
Yeah. Oh my God, the whip guy, whose preferred method is the leather whip.
Yes.
He gets a couple guys good with that whip.
In the first assignment,
scene,
the Bertolucci assignment.
The Bertolucci assignment. Yeah. Oh my God. So they drug them, and then I think they wake up, and Warbeck doesn't want to kill them yet because he wants to hook them up to the VR machine, and he wants the system to basically like analyze all their moves. Yeah, right. And then they can get rid of them because, you know, they want to mine them for their amazing martial arts techniques or something like that. So well, the idea is he's going to work them till they die of exhaustion or something. Then he doesn't even need to kill them, really. The machine will kill them eventually. Yeah, exactly. As you increase the difficulty of the... But, you know, these guys are just so good that the machine's not really that much of a match for them. You know, like they're kind of like, you know, facing off against these samurai dudes and then a ninja dude. Some of them just kind of look like weird clowns or like performance artists. Yeah, they're even like and introduce circus music at some point. Yeah, there's like circus music. It gets quite silly at a certain point, and eventually they're kind of put into this like 2-player mode where they're both fighting dudes, and it's probably one of the better sequences, animation VR sequences in it. And like, yeah, I think Billy Blanks has like the headpiece, like it's like strapped and locked to his head. He can't take it off. He's kind of trapped, and they do start to take quite a bit of damage. And I think Vicky frees him from it or something.
I'm forgetting now, but yes,
man.
I believe so.
They get out eventually,
right?
Oh my god, I was watching it on the way over here actually on the TTCs, and I think that's about the point I got to. So,
oh well,
yeah.
Well, there is another assignment throughout this film. That, the Academy is working on. There's
these other side quests.
Yeah, Mr. Bromfield puts the hit out on a guy named Goldberg, who is probably my favorite character in the movie because he's like losing his mind being holed up in this cabin with the other FSB agents who are like supposed to put him in witness protection or that sort of thing. Yeah. That's a big detail we did forget to mention. But so there's the whole thing of another assignment that he's working on.
Yes.
And this Mr. Bromfield has a lot to gain from killing Goldberg. Apparently, if he kills him,
he's going to get almost $500
million. And
right? Yeah.
So the bounty is set at like $3 million.
And I think originally it was 1.5 or something like that.
Yes.
And there's that whole scene where he's just like, "How do I know you guys are
legit?"
Legit. And then he's like, "Oh, would you like a demonstration?" And he's just like, "Sure." And then Buddy just like throws a throwing dagger into like his bodyguard's like throat. Or I don't even know if he was his bodyguard. It might have just been his assistant or something like that.
Just kills him on the spot.
So he's like, the classic bad guy demonstration.
Right.
Just kills a random guy,
Yes, exactly.
But I think that was enough to convince him,
Right.
They're doing this whole Bromfield operation. I'm not sure where. It almost looks like they're not at a cabin, but like just kind of like a small hideout or like bungalow.
I'm pretty sure it's literally someone who worked on the film's cabin.
Yeah, I do know that it was close to the campus. Like it was in Scarborough somewhere.
Oh, okay.
And before I forget, actually, one of the other interesting locations that they shot at, I didn't realize this until I listened to some of the director commentary earlier. They shot the final scene at David Carradine's ranch.
Oh, okay.
Which I wasn't able to look up where it is, but I guess he had a ranch, maybe somewhere around Ontario, because at this time, David Carradine was living in Toronto shooting the television series Kung Fu: The Legend Continues, which was like the successor to the original Kung Fu series that he was in, I guess, in the 70s. He was based in Toronto during this time, and I guess the crew got access to it there, so just kind of a little interesting nugget of a little Easter egg there for you. They I guess they escaped from these virtual reality prisons that they're in
from the Academy, and they realize now they're going after Goldberg, so they have to go and
I guess they have to go deal with that,
protect him.
Some of the agents that we saw earlier that went to go get Billy Blanks involved, I think, are there. And they're stereotypically like getting too comfortable. They're no one's gonna find us out here.
Right, they're watching movies, by the way.
They're like the one guy's like watching a kung fu movie, or he references like he's like, oh, that movie where there's like a father and a son student, and the father like tears out the student's heart from his chest. I'm like, I'm pretty sure he just like made up a movie. If that is a real movie, I'd love to know which one it is.
I was hoping you would know, actually. But
embarrassingly, I don't. If it does exist and someone's listening to this that can tell me what movie that is, I will be eternally grateful. But that actor, I can't remember his name. He's popped up in a lot of Canadian cinema. And you'll see a lot of these guys from like everything from like 90s CanCon cinema to like Tim Hortons commercials and stuff like back then. You would see a lot of these same actors in like commercials and film and television, stuff like that.
Gotcha.
Ava Kovacs, I think, is pretty recognizable. He's one of the agents assigned. They all just have like really like interesting faces, like the classic kind of like hard-boiled cop or disgruntled cop kind of face. But yeah, so the some of these VR Academy agents zero in on these guys' locations, and they're using the virtual reality map to kind of and they're putting like these graphs over the windows, so maybe there's some kind of mathematics involved with how they're going to like infiltrate this place, and they start zeroing in. Warbeck's kind of giving them pointers along the way. They're like, do it more stealthily, and it's very well. It's a very well well-oiled machine that
we
Warbuck
have
is conducting here.
Another quick thing to mention is we have, of course, we have the whip guy Damien, but we also have Spider, which is Billy Blanks' brother, Michael Banks.
Oh, yes. Thanks for mentioning that. I would have regretted that. Yeah, Michael Banks, again, with another amazing chin strap beard. I think he was also like a martial artist. He's in this. He kind of has a lot to prove because he kind of gets sidelined. He gets kind of like, what do you call it, benched?
Yeah, at some point, right.
In the first operation. And then the other guy with the whip, I think, is given lead, and he's kind of like, "Damn it!" Like, you know.
Well, he
like,
wants him to record it, right?
Right.
He wants him to stick back and make sure that he gets the recording.
Right,
of the
so
whip
they can
guy.
use it for future training simulations,
exactly.
right? It's all for those training simulations. But this guy's taking kind of a little bit more of a lead on this operation, I feel like.
Right.
There's also a random scene I forgot to mention in that first operation when they assassinate that guy by the pool. I just remember he like picks up an iguana at some point and like puts it on his shoulders. He's like, "Oh, you're coming with me, bud." I'm like, did he bring that iguana there with him? Is it like just as a pet iguana, or did he just like steal an iguana from this guy's property? It was kind of random. I don't know if you see the iguana.
I think he's like a rich. We do see the iguana.
Right.
I think he's like a rich guy who must have like exotic pets.
A lot of exotic
And then when
pets.
he kills, there's like one of Bertolucci's bodyguards. I think he's implying that he's like Latin American, and then he kills him, and he's like, "It's been a while since I've had iguana."
Oh, so he's saying like he's gonna eat it or something?
Eat him or something? But
yeah,
then
that wasn't quite clear.
Well, no, he kills the guy. He says, "Been a while since I've had iguana," and then he kills him. Then later we realize there's literally an iguana there.
Right.
So I'm not sure if he was like the handler of the iguana.
Maybe he's just like liberating it from. He's like an animal rights activist on the side. So he's just like, I gotta save this iguana.
Exactly.
I wish that iguana came back in the film later. I don't know.
Yeah. So I'm not exactly sure what that was about. I was also like so thrown by that.
Yeah.
Okay, well, anyway, so they end up, I guess Goldberg like escapes this assassination attempt, but some of the he escapes into the woods, and some of the FSB agents assigned to protecting Goldberg are killed in this.
Yeah, there's quite a lot
attempt.
of them, but I think some of them get gunned down or something like that.
But I think he ends up saving Goldberg, and they're driving back, in this chase scene, back to the academy, and that's where we get the.
Okay, so there's also another scene that took place before they get to the academy. I think where the whole building or bungalow or whatever they're staying at blows up.
Oh yeah.
There's like this huge explosion, and the reason I'm mentioning it is that I didn't know this at the time, but after the screening of this film that I caught at the Royal, Jalal Merhai did like a little talk afterwards, and apparently during that scene, Jalal Merhai I think chose to do the stunt himself, where he's like literally. Jumping through a window, I'm sure it was, stunt glass or whatever. But I don't know if it was like the pyrotechnic or the stunt prop guy actually set the explosion off too early. So when you watch that scene of Jalal Merhai jumping out of the building, it's not a stunt double. That's actually Jalal Merhai. And you see him completely engulfed in flames from that explosion. Like, it's actually nuts. Like, it's crazy because you can't even really tell it's him because he's literally engulfed in flame and smoke. But yeah, I think he did get some second or third degree burns from that.
Oh wow!
But yeah, like pretty minor. Like, luckily he wasn't so injured that he couldn't complete the production of the film. But he definitely had some burns and probably some hair singed off.
Yeah,
so
wow.
That was not a fun stunt for him to do. And he's Jalal's not known for doing a lot of his own stunts necessarily like Jackie Chan, but that was one of the pretty one of the more close calls he's had like that. So I just thought I'd mention that before we move on to the final.
Yes, the final encounter, right?
Yeah.
Oh no, that's so fascinating. No idea. And so you're saying this edition has is it like a director's cut, or it has a commentary? But you got that context from that screening you went to.
Yeah,
he told that story afterwards.
Exactly. He told that story after. I think it is in the director's commentary. So this specific release has two commentary tracks. There's one from producer-actor Jalal Merhai, and there's one from director Zail Dallin. So
awesome.
If you're interested in hearing some awesome BTS stories and stuff, pick up this release from.
Yeah, I'd love to hear them
Vinegar
talk
Syndrome.
about UTSC a bit too. That'd be fun.
Yeah. I wasn't able to listen to the whole thing today, but if there's any more UFT, reference tidbits, I'll let you know later.
Cool.
Yeah.
So to get to wrap up here, I guess Billy blanks. I'm also blanking on this.
Well, it's fun because they go through the whole gauntlet of virtual academy opponents when they're in the VR system, but
right.
then,
So now they're jacked up to the nines. They're like totally elite fighters.
Exactly.
Because they have gone through the training.
So in a way, it kind of backfires on them because it's just kind of almost made them stronger fighters.
Yes.
But I do remember Billy Blanks is so ecstatic about fighting these henchmen in real life. Because I think there's one scene where they're fighting. There's so many fight scenes in the meeting place, but he's getting surrounded by a bunch of these VR cadets or whatever, and then he's just like, "That virtual reality stuff is crap. I'm going to show you how it's done," or something like that. And then
he gets into like a squabble with one of these guys.
He gets into a squabble with like one or two, and then like a whole bunch come in. He's fighting like, I don't know, 6 to 8 of these guys at the same time. But it's a walk in the park for Billy Blanks. He's actually, like, you can see he's having a good time. He's smiling. He's kicking the crap out of these guys, and because he gets to fight on his own turf, which is actual reality, not just the virtual kind. So he gets to kind of lay down the fisticuffs and really show off some of those amazing spin kicks. And I love the wardrobe in these films because back in the 90s, like everyone was just wearing these like flowy kind of dress pants, or like these kind of like more like military cargo fatigues, but they look really good, when you're jumping around doing spin kicks and jump kicks and all this kind of flashy stuff. So yeah, the wardrobe is really, really funny in this.
Yeah, adds a little bit of like dynamics.
Adds some dynamics. Yeah, it adds to the charm and movement.
Oh,
and
yeah. Okay, yeah. So
they're back at the school. It's just a pretty long, like extended kind of fight scene, right? Like,
well, we get a fight scene first with the brothers. So we get Billy Blanks and Michael Blanks.
Oh, they do get to square off each other.
That happens in the boiler room.
Right.
Vicky sends them to, and I think he probably had the most fun with that one scene because they were. That's the first time we really see him go back and forth with someone and take some damage for the first time in the film.
Yeah, it's kind of like the first like big one-on-one challenge.
Yeah,
he gets. Yeah, I've just got it here on my phone. I'm just like watching. I also love like this like control room he's in where everything is constantly on like 12 like little CRT monitors.
Right. Yeah.
And stuff. Again, some great shots of like H-Wing and the lockers and everything. Man, this one guy he's fighting with like the do-rag. Is really awesome. That Eric kind of has a one-on-one moment. His one-on-one moment is kind of with this guy who he has a do-rag, and he in an earlier scene he's training some of the cadets on how to use an extendo bar. Oh yeah. Basically, extendo bars were kind of big in the 90s. Like I think you could just buy them from like a army surplus store or something like that. And like I remember people actually getting like jumped with these things.
Oh sure.
I mean, I grew up in we're here in Scarborough. Scarborough's. I would say that Scarborough's not as sketchy as people make it out to be, but
which is an unfortunate sort of stereotype that it has.
I think it's fortunate. Growing up in the 90s, this is just a side tangent, but there was this push at one point for, I think the mayor at the time, I can't remember which one it was a lot of people were not appreciating this reputation of Scarborough being so dangerous because you would always just be seeing on the news like, oh, murder and stabbing in Scarborough and this and that. So what they did to try to take away that stigma of violence and gang activity in Scarborough was they would start referring to these violent incidents by the intersection. Mm-hmm. So they'd be like, oh, stabbing at Jane and Finch or Midland and Eglinton. So as opposed to saying in Scarborough, mm-hmm. I guess to just try to clean up its image and stuff. I mean, crime can happen anywhere you are. It doesn't matter if it's a good neighbor or a bad neighbor. That can happen anywhere, right? So, like, I grew up in Scarborough, and like, honestly, like, I mean, I experienced and seen some sketchy things, but I always felt like relatively safe walking around. I never got jumped or anything like that. So, I'm sure some other people probably had experiences like that too, unfortunately. But Scarborough's awesome, and like, I love it so much. I don't really. I think some of that too is probably also connected to racism.
Of course, yeah.
A lot of minorities in Scarborough, and
Scarborough's been getting some love lately in the film scene. Like recently at Morningside Cineplex, they got to play Morningside.
Right. Yeah, I still haven't seen that. I really want to watch that.
It was wonderful. I thought, as someone who is a transplant here, really didn't grow up here, but also now is like intimately familiar with Scarborough and really in love with this city. I thought that Morningside was, despite having its
I haven't seen it yet, but
I won't spoil anything.
No spoilers about the Morningside.
No. I thought it was just a lovely tribute to the city. Not to give anything away or anything like that. And then obviously Scarborough came out, and then the film.
Yeah, is that the one that was directed by Joyce Wong?
Yeah.
So she's actually a friend of mine.
Awesome.
I knew her through. I used to play in this band called Yamantaka Sonic Titan. And her husband, I was at her wedding actually. Yeah, her husband Alwyn was really good friends with the band, and she actually directed a music video for us. The same director of this movie Scarborough. And yeah, if you want to look it up, it's called Yandere. It's on YouTube. But she's an incredible filmmaker. Scarborough was really, really good. So yeah, it's been getting so much more love. I'm even just being downtown, I see ads for some of these films and like big, one-sheet posters and stuff everywhere. So yeah, it's great that it's getting more love.
Yeah, for
these
sure.
days, Yeah, I think especially like just with, I mean, downtown's great. In other regards, it's obviously just known for being way more expensive. Like coming to Scarborough is nuts that you get like a full meal for like less than $10. But there's just ample parking everywhere. The rent is obviously much cheaper.
Yeah.
Obviously there's the drawbacks of being in the suburbs, and if you don't have a car or something like that, it's a little bit hard to get around, I suppose. But I've got so much love for Scarborough, man. I love it here.
Yeah, and. I mean, this is pretty hyper-specific to the University of Toronto campus, but I can feel the love for the environment that this film takes place in.
Yeah.
I think it like really just makes the best use of UTSC that I've ever seen in a film.
Yeah.
For real.
Well, it's also just not just like a scene or two. I think you mentioned Enemy by Denis Villeneuve earlier, and it's just like, I think what's really cool about that one, though, is that it literally takes place in Toronto. I don't know if they mention or reference U of T specifically that he's teaching at, but it's very clearly like this movie's in Toronto.
Yeah.
And it's just, it follows in that amazing tradition of actually like shooting films in Toronto, but also it being set in Toronto is somewhat unique. Like the only other filmmaker that really I think was known for that is obviously David Cronenberg with Videodrome. Taking place here and
Crash.
Obviously Crash, perhaps most famously, so much
of the
footage
highways.
Of the DVP and the Gardener. Oh my God. So I think that's what I really loved about
that's fair.
Enemy, is that not only is it shot here, it takes place here. They reference, very memorable, like streets, like, Queen Street. I think they even mentioned Lawrence, or I don't know. Like they mention a lot of very specific places in that film. I know we're supposed to be talking about Expect No Mercy, but I really have to give some love for Enemy because it's my favorite Denis Villeneuve film. Like I just love doppelgangers, the concept, and I don't think Toronto has looked more interesting on film than in Enemy. I'm totally blanking on the name of the cinematographer that shot that.
We can look it up.
We can look that up, but just there's so many amazing aerial.
I'm tempted to say Deacons, but I don't think.
Yeah, there's just so many amazing aerial shots of the city, and just the panning and the drone shot is just masterful.
Okay, so it's Nicholas Baldock.
Okay, yeah. I wonder what else
he's from Montreal.
He's from Montreal, right? Okay. Does it say anything else he's worked on that?
For films, there's 2024 Count of Monte Cristo that he shot.
Oh, okay, interesting, yeah. It's just, Toronto just looks so...
I think it's a lot of French-Canadian
A lot of French-Canadian stuff, interesting, yeah, awesome. It just looks so unique in that film, like it's quite sinister. And, we talk about the brutalist architecture of U of T Scarborough being, very oppressive. But I think they just managed to look the city itself. They just are able to infect the landscape of Toronto with that same oppressiveness, even though the design and architecture is a lot different downtown. Just the buildings just loom so menacingly against the landscape. Obviously, they're trying to recreate this almost kind of like spider's web kind of look, which kind of almost makes this like maze-like kind of claustrophobic surrounding. Like everything's kind of connected, but not really in a positive way. Like it's just like we're all kind of like I'm getting into some of like the metaphor of the film, just being like kind of trapped in this like tangled web of identity and authenticity, and I find that movie so endlessly fascinating. It's one of those ones that you like finish and you're like, you don't really understand what you just saw, and you might end up on Reddit reading like
fan theories,
which I sometimes love to do. That was one film where I really had to dig into what I was seeing, because there's just so many things that you don't. I love this about his films, is that there's just these tiny details that like might not mean anything, or like in the opening scene where there's like these weird scenes where they're at this kind of like secret club or something like that, and he's wearing this ring, and like it gets a sense of like there's this weird secret society or something just lurking underneath the surface. And like in something like in Prisoners, this weird detail where Jake Gyllenhaal's character has this like hand tattoo, but it's weird because he's like a cop, so it's like it just adds so much depth to these characters and settings, and he's just such an amazing filmmaker.
I love your explanation of Toronto.
I mean, again, this is
I think you're right. It looks so unique in that movie. It's been forever since I've seen Enemy. Damn.
I've seen it quite a few times because I just love going back to it and noticing things I didn't notice the first time around. And Toronto always looks interesting on film, but I don't think it's ever been portrayed like that in a film. It's just really incredible to see.
Yeah. Okay, to wrap things up, I think we talk about the ultimate showdown between Billy Blanks and
and again
Wolf
another
Larson.
amazing battle at the UTSC meeting place. It's funny to see him kick Wolf Larson's ass while there's this giant like portrait of him in the background.
But he introduces the fight with this like monologue about the new human being.
Right.
He goes,
I
represent the new human being, one that will thrive in the new world where information is valued above all.
Right.
He's talking about him being in a global network of computers and being more than his body and his soul.
Oh, wow.
And I think that's the first time really that the film dives into like the implications of VR and introducing technology, not just like something you interface with, but as an extension of one's body and something that you like fully become. And I think that is the sort of cool
it's eerily
philosophical elements of this movie that are kind of under the surface of like the funny.
It's funny too because these concepts, like the way, like it's obviously eerily prescient of in this age of digital technology and AI, and like we do have virtual reality, right? With Oculus Rifts, but it's obviously been more on the home consumer market. It's more like video games and stuff like that, but it's also used for like medical technology and training and stuff like that. And while it's not really evolved into this kind of all-encompassing technology that we thought would be like our lives would be so intrinsically attached to it, it didn't really kind of pan out
not the VR itself,
not the VR itself, but these ideas of capturing human ingenuity with training simulations is obviously echoing the way AI is now mining human knowledge and our even like artistic ability and stuff like that. So it's interesting when these kind of like schlocky, cheesy martial arts action films sort of transcend their form. Like it just through the way they've aged and the context of this technology. And it's like, I don't think this film was so ambitious to really like think that they were going to be predicting a lot of these things. But again, like that's the beauty of revisiting film is just how these technologies remain today, and how some people just kind of like had their finger on the pulse, maybe unwittingly or maybe mindfully. It's that's the beauty of cinema.
Yeah, I think they might have jumped on a trend or something that might have been like fascinating to people at that time, but turns out that it's like incredibly prescient. Yeah,
and like Jalal was talking about in the director's commentator too about how when this film was in pre-production, it was originally planning to be. It almost was a sequel to Talons of the Eagle, which is I don't know if I could call it a buddy cop, but it was another film that Jalal Merhai and Billy Blanks starred in together, another Film One production. But then I think, just through the popularity of VR at the time, they just like, let's make a VR action martial arts thriller. And I know they had some financing from Alliance, actually. And they were the ones that actually cast Wolf Larson in this film at the time. Originally, this role was supposed to go to Gary Daniels, who is a British martial arts actor, maybe best known for starring in the live action adaptation of Fist of the North Star, which was like a pretty famous manga and anime that was like really like hyper violent. He was originally supposed to star in this, but Alliance Atlantis wanted to use Wolf Larson, I think, because I'm not sure if this was at the same time, but he starred in a television adaptation of Tarzan. So that's kind of what people knew him for at that time. So I think Gary Daniels was upset about losing the role because Jalal Merhai had kind of promised it to him. So, but sometimes you just got to go with what the studio wants, obviously. And I love that, like, despite all the high tech technology in this, it just really comes down to two sweaty, shirtless dudes that are totally ripped, battling each other with a concrete backdrop. It just kind of comes back to the basics. Despite all this advanced
with a one-on-one hand-to-hand combat duel.
Another thing we absolutely have to mention is that not only did this film exist, there was also a companion video game.
Really?
Actually, an actual. I'm not sure if it was called Expect No Mercy, but there was a legit. They made a video game, and this also obviously if you grew up at this time, Mortal Kombat was so huge. Like, I'm not sure which Mortal Kombat would have been out at this time. Maybe it was at Mortal Kombat 2 or 3, but this is before, like, Mortal Kombat was popular on consoles, but back in the day, video games would often come out first at the arcade before they became available on the home market. Kind of like, similar to theatrical distribution. The movie comes out in the theater first.
Yeah, logically.
Then it's on the home video. Yeah. So the video game would come out at arcades, which there were many, many more of in the 80s and 90s. And so you would have to go to the arcade, spend 25, 50 cents, sometimes $1 to just play the game. But because, people were so hyped about these games, they would spend this money. And then eventually, after however many months, it would get released on Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, one of those home PlayStation or something like that. So, this came out, I think, in tandem to promote the film. I don't think the game was really that popular or successful necessarily, but it does exist. I have not personally played it. I know you can.
Which platform was it on? Do you remember?
I wish I knew this. If I had to guess,
like MS-DOS or something.
MS-DOS. Yeah, it might have been on. I want to say either Super Nintendo or Sega Genesis would probably been the likely console. Maybe, I don't know if they had arcade cabinets, but I think you can get it on, you could probably play it on like one of those.
ROM hack or something.
What do you call it? Simulators? Video game?
Yeah. Emulators.
Emulators is
You can get a ROM.
You can get a ROM emulator to play this game. There's also, like, you can YouTube it. Like, you can probably see like how people post like playthroughs
Sure.
Of the actual game. So if you're interested in this film, look up some of the footage because they use a lot of the same, I assume it's motion capture technology. Like, when you're playing Mortal Kombat, it's fun. What I love about Instagram is that my algorithm is, sometimes pretty spot on. It'll show you a lot of the behind the scenes stuff of, you see these actual actors in these costumes and you're like, oh my God, this was a real person. It's not just this 3D rendered character. They motion captured actual martial artists, which is probably why, some of these games actually looked so impressive because this is like a real person.
Right. It wasn't like
kicking.
An artistic sprite or something like that, like fighting games before.
Yeah. It looked, it did look clumsy and awkward at times, but then there's other times where it looks like organic and natural and quite impressive. I mean, at least for the time, like
I
seeing.
think that's also why Mortal Kombat was pretty controversial in its time.
Almost too realistic.
Yeah,
the violence was, right? And looking at the violence in Mortal Kombat today is actually so insane. Like it's almost like watching like something like a torture porn like Saw film. Like people are getting like their spines ripped out. Like
the fatalities.
The fatalities are nuts.
Yeah,
like,
they're crazy.
It's almost like I love
and the X-ray moves now.
The X-ray moves are just like it's so funny
insane
to see that because I feel like that X-ray thing the first time that was done in cinema was in Sonny Chiba's The Street Fighter film, which was from the early to mid 70s. You could definitely consider that like a Japanese exploitation film, or maybe karate exploitation might be the more specific term. But yeah, there's a famous scene where he's like punches a guy in the skull, and then it cuts to this X-ray shot of like the skull breaking from the fist hitting it, and I swear that was probably the source material for a lot of these like X-ray
in the new Mortal
injuries
Kombat.
in the new Mortal Kombat. There was another, I think Romeo Must Die, the Jet Li film also employs that. There's a scene where he's fighting the guy at the end, and he jumps up and does this crazy, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like one of those crazy wire fu crescent axe kicks, and it lands down on the guy's spine, and then you see his fucking spine just completely shattered and obliterated. So
to go along with the video game thing, though, I think there's an element of like, okay, maybe it's not the most violent thing that's ever been in a movie before that. Like, of course, there are exploitation films and stuff that's been banned in the past and super violent films of the past. But there's some element of like you're controlling it that might have like touched people's nerves.
I think so. It's a bit much
especially being a new technology.
Yeah,
that makes sense why Mortal Kombat was so controversial at the time, because it's like, well, first of all, it's in an arcade where there might be kids.
Exactly.
That's like the baseline thing. That was probably controversial. But also just like there's like some tactile element, right? Where like you're controlling this character.
You know, is this going to be breeding a generation of murderers? And I mean, GTA was also, Grand Theft Auto was also famously controversial.
Yeah.
Because you're just like,
I mean, this is a never-ending debate about.
It's tough because I'm really against censorship, obviously. But I've been asked this on other like film podcasts too, like what my opinion on violence in cinema, because I do show a lot of films that are very violent.
Yeah.
And it's interesting how martial arts films can often be even more violent than horror films. Like if you've ever seen The Night Comes for Us, like that Iko Uwais film, it's just like, oh my god, like it's some of these films are even more violent than like the well, I was going to say Peter Jackson's Brain Dead, but nothing is more violent than that. Actually, think about it. But it's interesting to see. But there's part of me that's like, I like violence in cinema and art, but I think context is so important.
Sure.
I generally like, there's like the fun, campy, senseless violence, but then there's also like the brutally oppressive violence. And like, I do think sometimes it's good for art if it's like kind of just like, it can be a very cathartic experience. Sure. It could be something that's commenting on maybe like a fascist period of history. But I do think it can be used very irresponsibly.
Sure.
And excessively. And when violence is provided as entertainment in and of itself, I do think that's a bit dangerous.
Yeah.
I do think it needs to be portrayed as responsibly as one can. Like, I'm not saying like excessive violence is bad, but I do think it has to have some purpose and meaning.
Well, as a programmer and as a curator, I'm sure you've maybe learned over time how to approach especially the more complex, controversial films for your audiences that, maybe have like elements of misogyny or elements of extreme violence, elements of portrayals of fascism in a positive light or whatever. But like you're saying, just pushing that out into the world with no context. I
think it's irresponsible. Like,
I agree with you. And that happened recently.
Oh, yeah?
I'm not sure if you know about this. It's a bit of like Twitter beef or Twitter drama.
Oh, okay.
But there's a community of archivists online.
Yeah.
That, post torrent links or internet archive links for maybe lost media or
Right, yep.
famous films or whatever it might be. There's a whole community of these people. And one of these guys recently put out or retweeted or redirected his audience to a more than 200 film collection of Third Reich films from Nazi Germany.
Yeah.
With no context at all.
Yeah.
And but was like under the guise of archive, like interested in archives and interested in preserving cinema history and that sort of thing. But he just like linked his audience to it.
What is the motivation there?
Yeah.
You know, it's
you have to question the motivation.
It just, to me, that seems like edgelord behavior.
Well,
or maybe not edgelord, but
I tend to agree, but he did backtrack. He did apologize because the person that he was linking to was just a National Socialist Nazi piece of shit.
And so why are you using your platform to highlight that?
I don't think it wasn't very they're very thoughtful, but he was met with a lot of backlash from people who I think really do appreciate his work, generally speaking, and really understand the importance of accessibility for film and film history. But I thought it was like a really interesting moment because it just highlighted that importance of like context for sure violent films, but how about films from like the fascist era of film history? Or
I think if you are referencing something like that or sharing or retweeting or something like that, like if you're doing that without saying anything about it, you're kind of perpetuating it. Or you're kind of you're providing a platform for it.
I agree,
and it's irresponsible not to say you should either disown this or condone it so people know where you stand. Right? Like I don't know.
The episode right before this that I covered was on Tokyo Olympiad. The
I'm not familiar.
Kon Ichikawa documentary about the 1965 Tokyo Olympics.
Oh, okay.
And it's like a little avant-garde editing style. It was super ahead of its time. But also it exists in tandem with the 1936 Berlin Olympics film Olympia. They kind of are like communicating very close with one another.
Really?
And, Criterion has Olympia.
Oh,
that film. But again, like in context, with proper messaging, with featurettes that have historians talk about what that did to transform the image of the Olympics in the public eye. Yeah. Even though it is a Third Reich film.
Right.
It was commissioned by Nazi Germany. But I don't think I could have just tackled that on its own without the context. And I imagine as a curator,
it's the responsible thing to do as a curator, programmer, presenter, host. Anytime you're tackling a subject like that, I think you do have a responsibility to provide context, historically, politically, socially, and personally. I think that's any good presenter of anything will take all those things into consideration. Yeah.
All right. Just to wrap things up, I just thank you so much for bringing Expect No Mercy to the show. That was a blast.
Absolute pleasure.
If you want to shout out what you're working on or where people can find you, that would be awesome too.
Oh, great. Yeah. So if you want to keep up with my monthly Black Belt cinema screenings at the Revue, the best place to do that would be either through Instagram. You can follow Black Belt Cinema at Black Belt Cinema or at Revue Cinema. Revue Cinema also has a website that has the monthly schedules for all the upcoming films. If you want to keep up with any of the graphic design stuff I do, poster design, apparel, shirt designs. I did this awesome shirt for the Sleazoids podcast, who are good friends. You can get that shirt and many of my other designs, some of my old poster prints, zines. If you're not in Toronto, you can buy them online from blackbeltcinema.ca. I've got a pretty bare bones web store there. I did start a Substack for Film Fuckers. Fuckers is spelled FVCKERS, so Film Fuckers. We're on Instagram and Substack. I don't know, you can follow me personally on my own Instagram. It's just Brandon's Limbs, BrandonDonsLimbs.
I'll have that all up on the
yeah,
screen.
yeah.
In
Those are all the
description.
places you can find me. I'm most active on Instagram, I guess. I do feel like I miss out on a lot of like film Twitter stuff or X or whatever.
You're not missing anything, I promise.
Yeah, I'm trying to stay off of it for obvious reasons.
Yeah,
or maybe
I'm
not so
also
obvious,
trying
but
to
yeah.
cut down.
But yeah, that's kind of where I'm most active at these days. And yeah, I've got some
Sweet.
fun. I don't know when this might air, but got some fun events coming up. We've got screening Takeshi Kitano's Sonatine for the Heatwave series at Revue Wednesday, September 3rd. September 13th, we're doing the new 4K restoration of Sergeant Kabuki-Man NYPD, famously directed by Lloyd Kaufman of Toxic Avenger fame. October, we've got Versus by Ryuhei Kitamura, which is probably like a TIFF Midnight Madness kind of classic. I think that's probably an anniversary screening. We're going to have a intro and Q&A from the director Ryuhei Kitamura. November, I don't know if it's been announced yet, but we're screening Challenge of the Tiger. It's a Bruce Lee, not a Bruce Lee film in the Brewsploitation canon, which is really great. Stars Richard Harris, and I think it's filmed in Spain or Greece. It's like a Spain and Hong Kong kind of co-production. So that's what I've got coming up in the near future.
Awesome. Thanks so much. And thanks again for being here.
Thanks so much, guys. And shout out to all the UTSC students and alumni. Keep going. Keep doing it. You guys you're awesome.
Yeah, awesome.